The West once stood as the world's undeniable center. Its shadow stretched across continents, its influence carried on every ocean tide. From the grand cathedrals of Europe to the halls of power in Washington, its voice dictated the rhythm of global affairs. Old maps show vast swathes of the globe painted in the colors of Western empires. Their cities were the epicenters of art, science, and governance. For half a millennium, to speak of progress was to speak of the West. It was an era defined by a deep and unwavering confidence, a belief that its destiny was to lead, to build, and to shape the world in its own image. This dominance was not an accident of history. It was built piece by piece through exploration, conquest, and intellectual ferment. The Great Divergence began not with armies, but with machines. In the late 18th century and the early 19th century, a revolution of iron and steam erupted in the heart of Great Britain and quickly spread across the West. The invention of the steam engine was the catalyst. Suddenly, human muscle and animal muscle were no longer the limits of production. Coal, dug from the earth, became the fuel for a new age. Factories, belching smoke into the sky, sprouted up around cities like Manchester and Essen. This was the Industrial Revolution, a period of transformation so profound that it utterly remade the structure of society and the balance of global power. This new industrial might created unprecedented wealth and military advantage. Machines could produce textiles, tools, and weapons at a scale and speed previously unimaginable. New modes of transport, like the steamship and the railway, shrank the globe. Goods, soldiers, and administrators could be moved across vast distances with astonishing efficiency. London. The unparalleled power of the industrial West inevitably turned upon itself. The 20th century began with a confidence that bordered on arrogance, but this was shattered in the trenches of the First World War. From 1914 to 1918, Europe used its industrial might to wage a war of attrition. A generation of young men was lost in the mud of Flanders fields. The conflict bankrupted empires, toppled ancient monarchies, left a deep psychological scar. It was a brutal, self-inflicted wound that signaled the end of Europe's unquestioned dominance. Yet the West's story is also one of remarkable resilience. After the devastation of the Great War and the collapse of the Great Depression, it was plunged into conflict again. The Second World War, 1939 to 1945, was even more destructive, a global struggle against totalitarianism from the shores of Normandy to islands in the Pacific. At its end, much of Europe and Asia lay in ruins. Cities were flattened, economies shattered, and the world faced the atomic bomb. It seemed the West had exhausted itself in a second catastrophic civil war. What followed was not final decline, but an astonishing rebirth. Led by the United States, now the dominant economic and military power, the West launched an unprecedented reconstruction. Today, the confidence of that post-war era feels like a distant memory, A deep and corrosive political polarization now grips many Western nations. The common ground on which consensus was once built has eroded, replaced by the trenches of a cultural and political civil war. Political discourse has become more fractious, more hostile. Trust in foundational institutions is in steady decline. In governments, in the media, in the electoral process itself, this internal division makes it increasingly difficult to address long-term challenges, as nations become consumed by bitter, short-term battles that paralyze effective governance and alienate citizens from their leaders. At the same time, the economic engine that powered the West's rise is sputtering. The era of rapid, broad-based growth has given way to stagnation and soaring inequality. For decades, manufacturing jobs, the bedrock of the middle class, have migrated to lower-cost regions of the world. While new wealth has been generated in technology finance, its benefits have been concentrated in the hands of a few, leaving many communities behind. Stagnant wages, coupled with rising public and private debt, create a pervasive sense of economic anxiety and a feeling that the system is no longer working for the average person. Perhaps the most inexorable challenge is a demographic one. Across the West, birth rates have fallen far below the replacement level. At the same time, advances in healthcare mean people are living longer than ever before. The result is a society that is steadily growing older and, in some cases, smaller. A shrinking workforce of young people is being asked to support a burgeoning population of retirees, placing immense strain on public finances, pension systems, healthcare services. This demographic inversion is a slow-moving crisis, a silent hollowing out of the human capital that drives economic dynamism and innovation. History does not offer rules, but it does offer echoes. When we look at the challenges facing the West today, it is difficult not to think of the fate of past empires. Consider Rome. For centuries, it was the undisputed master of its world, a civilization of unparalleled military, legal, and engineering might. Yet over time, it succumbed to a familiar cocktail of ailments: political infighting, overstretched military commitments, economic stagnation, loss of civic virtue. The fall was not a single event, but a long, slow process of decay. The ruins of the Forum stand today as a silent, stone reminder that no power is permanent. While the West grapples with its internal struggles, new centers of power are rising with astonishing speed, most notably in Asia. China's economic transformation over the past 4 decades is without precedent in human history. It has lifted hundreds of millions of people out of poverty, built futuristic cities, built world-class infrastructure. It is now a leader in fields from artificial intelligence to renewable energy. Likewise, India, with its vast and youthful population, is emerging as a major economic and technological force. The skylines of Shanghai and Mumbai tell a story of ambition, dynamism, and a profound shift in global momentum. This redistribution of power is visible in every metric. New trade routes are being drawn, centered not on the Atlantic but on the Pacific and the Indian Oceans. The world's largest ports, the fastest-growing economies, the biggest infrastructure projects are now found in the East. This is not to say the West has become irrelevant, far from it. But it is no longer the only game in town. We are moving from a unipolar or bipolar world to a multipolar one. Influence is more diffuse, alliances are more fluid. The global agenda is shaped by a more diverse set of actors with different histories and interests. And so, we arrive at the great unanswered question of our time. Is the West on an irreversible path of relative decline, destined to become just one influential region among many? Or does it possess the capacity for renewal? Can it overcome its internal divisions, reignite its economic dynamism,